I'm Ann Dark.
I'm Tracy Stormy.
And I'm Kathy Knight.
And together we are
It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club,
a podcast for mystery lovers.
Welcome.
If you enjoy our show, please consider contributing to the Dark and Stormy Patreon. By becoming a patron, you will help us create better and quality content. There are also benefits to becoming a patron, such as exclusive content and Dark and Stormy merchandise. Become a supporter at patreon.com/darkandstormybc. Check our website for the link. We appreciate any and all contributions. Thank you.
Welcome to the 84th episode of It Was a Dark and Stormy Book Club. And it's finally here. Hallowread is the end of this week. We have been talking about this for months. Some people don't know what it is. Well, Hallowread is a book festival and mini-con for authors and fans of paranormal, urban fantasy, steampunk, and horror, as well as mysteries.
This is a multi-author event with various activities throughout the weekend. They include some writing workshops,
ghost tours,
a steampunk author tea,
author panels,
book signings,
paranormal investigation,
and so much more.
Come hang out with your favorite authors in historic, haunted Ellicott City, Maryland.
Yes, that's Friday and Saturday of this week, the 25th and 26th. Not too late to get tickets.
Registration is $75 for both days, and that will get you into the panels, the signings. You can access the website and social media, plus other incentives, and lunch both days.
If you use our code, Dark and Stormy, you'll get 15% off that entry fee.
For more details, go to hallowread.com.
Since we're a mystery book club, we decided we would invite 3 authors who are going to be at Hallowread, but who also are mystery writers as well as paranormal and horror. And we have selected
Susan Viemeister,
Bryan Nowak,
and Melissa C. Annen.
Susan Viemeister has written 4 books. She writes the Bealtown and the Parker Williams mystery series. Her website is SusanViemeister.com.
We would like to welcome Susan Viemeister. She is the author of the Parker Williams mysteries and the Bealtown mysteries. Welcome, Susan.
Hi. Susan, is this your first year at Hallowread?
No, it's actually, I believe it's going to be my 3rd year.
Well, this will be our first year. Can you kind of give us a rundown? How do things go? What's your involvement? Are you going to be part of a panel?
Yes, actually, I think I'm on 2 panels. The names escape me at the moment, but I'll be on 2 panels, and it's a real fun event. It's a good opportunity for readers to get with their authors that they like and listen to them and have a chance to ask questions and interact. And then afterwards, of course, you cruise around and buy books or whatever. I had a blast last year, too.
We are so much looking forward to this. Susan, for our listeners who aren't familiar with your books, can you tell us a little bit about them?
Sure. The Parker Williams series actually wasn't even going to be a series. It started off, I wrote my first book, Dear Charlotte, published it back in 2015. It took me 6 years to write it, and then finally I didn't know where I was going with it, so I asked a friend, I'm like, should I even finish this or not? And she read what I had, and she said, oh no, you have to finish this. Thank God I got some inspiration, finished it, and I was working on my second book, Terror at Thunder Ridge, and that was going to be kind of my trying to channel Stephen King a bit. But by now, everyone was telling me how much they liked the characters in the first book, so I ended up moving Parker and Kate and my paranormal guy over into the next series, and it's kind of rolled on from there. Every book I add a new character or 2, plus have the original team in there as well. The other series that I just started, the Bealtown mysteries, they all still take place in the same area, which is basically based on where I live here in Virginia. That started as a challenge from somebody after last Hallowread, in fact. They wanted authors to post something that they were working on. So I wasn't really working on anything, so I just made something up, and then everybody wants to know what happened. So that actually evolved into that book. The sequel to that was the one I just released, The Evil in the Lake.
I'm curious,
Go ahead.
what is the crowd like? Do they get real involved? Do people get dressed up, or?
Some do. Some do get dressed up. There's definitely Halloween theme going around. Some of the authors really get into it too. The readers get into it. You see all sorts of crazy stuff. Activities like the haunted house that you can go to, which we did last year, which was an absolute blast. I'd never done one before. It was one of these where I think the high school puts it together, and there's an old abandoned school, and they turn it into like a haunted house that you go through. And it was so much fun. I actually used it in my book that I'm working on now. I had a couple of my characters go through a similar thing.
How did you get started writing?
Honestly, I had a really god-awful day at work, and they just pushed me over the edge, and I just went home. I just had to kill somebody, so I just started writing.
I identify with that.
Well, that's great.
I had no clue what I was doing. I was just writing this big, long Word doc. I figured, editors make it into a book. They make chapters and all this. And turns out, no, that's not the case. So then that kind of actually stopped right there because I didn't know how to break it up. I didn't know where I was going to break it into chapters and stuff. And like I said, it took me 6 years. And in the meantime, I started writing a book. I'm like, well, I'll just write about my animals because I love reading stories about people's animals. So I started writing that, and that still hasn't been finished because then I got the inspiration for the other book. And next thing I know, I was writing all the Parker Williams series. So I do need to get back to my animal memoir at some point. Then finally, the person that actually put me over the edge, she never knew that she was the reason I went home and started writing, but she loved the first book. I never told her. Because she's actually a very nice person, but it was a bad day.
Did you make her into an animal?
No, I didn't. She's not even in the book.
Oh.
I do have a lot of my friends, and actually I think that is one of the panels was where do you get your inspiration from and like your characters and stuff. A lot of my characters, there's some friends who want to be in books, and I always tell them, I'm like, well, I can put you in there, but there's no guarantee what's going to happen to you or how you're going to be portrayed, so just be ready. But I haven't had any complaints yet.
We just spoke with Bryan Nowak. He's going to be on the same panel.
Oh, okay, cool. The other panel is a similar thing, I think. I think it's how did you get started writing, I believe. I should remember I suggested them, but, when you get to be my age, it's like, I don't remember anything. I'm like, I remember who I am sometimes.
Join the club.
Do you have any other events that you are expecting to go to besides Hallowread?
I have here in Bedford in November, there's a book signing. It's a kind of big giant craft show that I'm doing. I'll be there selling my books. In December in Roanoke, I think it's a 2-day Christmas craft festival, and I'll be there as well. I just did one in September in Bedford called Centerfest, which is like a big street festival in Bedford, Virginia. And I was down with Goose Creek Studio. They do framing and artwork, and they're really good at promoting local authors and local artists and all that because there's a lot of talent in this little town. So I did that last month, and that was a whole lot of fun too.
Oh, sounds cool. Can you let our listeners know your website so they can go check you out and check out your books?
It is SusanMViemeister.com. You can also check me out on Amazon. My author page is Amazon.com/author/Susan M. Viemeister. So they can check me out there.
Awesome. We will update our show notes with that information so people can find you.
The information should also be with the Hallowread folks. I have a Facebook page as well for my author page, which I don't always update as often as I should, but it's out there. It's
Great.
Susan M. Viemeister also.
Well, Susan, thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us today. We look forward to meeting you in person at Hallowread, and
we wish you all the best with your book.
Thank you. I can't wait to meet you guys too. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. You won't regret it. It's a blast.
We're looking forward to it.
Exactly. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
King's River Life magazine now has a mystery podcast called Mystery Rats Maze.
Episodes consist of mystery short stories and first chapters of mystery novels, read by local actors.
To listen to the episodes and subscribe to the podcast, you can go to mysteryratsmaze.podbean.com, and you can find them on Apple Podcasts and Google Play.
Featured authors include Cleo Coyle, Elaine Viets, Jerry Westerson, Dennis Palumbo, Kate Carlisle, and many more.
Bryan Nowak has written 5 books. He writes horror, but also mysteries. His website is BryanNowak.com. BryanNowak.com.
We would like to welcome Bryan Nowak to the show. Welcome, Bryan.
Thank you for having me.
Is this your first year at Hallowread?
No, actually, this will be my 4th year at Hallowread. So next year will be my 5th one. I know it's always exciting when you hit your 5th year at Hallowread. I love it. It's one of my must-do shows during the course of the year.
Well, Ray is going to have to tell us all about it because this is our first year.
Oh, great. That's very exciting.
It sure is. We heard about it from Misty Simon, so
Yeah.
We are looking forward to seeing her. And of course, we are a mystery-based podcast. We're more interested in your psychological thrillers. Can you tell us about those?
Let me start by saying my personal belief is that every book is essentially a mystery because we never really know when we open that cover what we're going to get.
Oh, I like that.
So I look at every single book that I read, every single thing that I write is I'm writing essentially a mystery. It's a mystery to somebody. I tend to write what I refer to as dark mysteries. That is the Dramatic Dead and the Reverent Dead. I'm actually working on the 3rd book in the series. Then I have a paranormal thrillers, RIAPOKE, and The Reverent Dead. Then I write a little bit of science fiction and some other things too. I grew up on sort of a steady diet of classic horror films. You know, you think of the old black and whites, the Dracula, the Swamp Thing, Mummy. My mom used to have me watch those as a little kid with her, and it excited. I love that. I love the feeling of suspense. I love the feeling of what's behind that next door when you already know that, the Mummy or Dracula are going to be behind the next door. But anyway, that's what makes it kind of exciting. Or that's what I strive to build into things that I write. The Crimson Tassels, it's a bit of an homage to my upbringing because, well, actually I grew up in northern Illinois, but I spent a lot of time in corn country down around like Joliet area and a lot of farms. There's a lot of farms out there. That book is really based in a farmhouse out in corn country. I always like to tell people when I'm giving my few second spiel about that book, it's a young couple newly married from Virginia that move out to Illinois and buy a house that's been boarded up for 30 years. I always make the joke, it's a bit of a spoiler, but never buy a house that's been boarded up for 30 years. It's always a terrible idea. RIAPOKE was a story that came out of, I always loved the idea of lakes. So I spent a lot of time on a lake in Indiana, and my grandfather told me these stories about a city that used to be at the bottom of, a river valley. And when they dammed it up to make the lake, apparently the whole city got swallowed up by this river. Now, I don't think that ever really happened, but it made a great story for my grandfather anyway.
Well, I know it did happen in some places.
Yes, it actually did happen in some places.
Did the Tennessee Valley Authority thing. They just took a couple towns out.
I actually have a degree in geography, so we sort of studied some of that, and the Tennessee Valley Project is one of the ones we studied. In RIAPOKE, a mother and her 17-year-old son, they're on their way to a resort on Lake Oleander. I specifically picked the name Oleander because if you know anything about the flower, if you eat it, it's poisonous. It'll kill you.
Right.
There's a little bit of foreshadowing about the things that can happen there. Well, they go to the resort. All along the way, they're told to stay out of the town of RIAPOKE, which sits on the other side of the lake. RIAPOKE is an Indian word. It actually would be familiar with the Powhatan Indians who lived in this area on the East Coast. One of the translations is the evil or the devil. They naturally end up having to swim for their lives to the town of RIAPOKE, and that's when the story gets really interesting.
Well, that sounds fascinating and spooky. Bryan, are you going to be on any panels? What will your schedule look like that day?
Well, first of all, whenever I do things like this, I try not to leave my table as much as possible because Hallowread's actually a pretty busy event, and for me, sitting there and being able to talk to readers is the greatest part about all this. When you sit here, when you write novels or write short stories or whatever you happen to write, best part is being able to actually meet the readers, people who are going to be, I hate to use the term judging, but people who are going to be reading through what you wrote, getting a sense for what they like, what they appreciate. To me, it's sort of an honor to meet people who are reading what we're writing. But I'm also moderating a panel. I usually try and moderate or participate in a panel. It's very exciting. We're going to have one on, I believe the title is something along the lines of where does inspiration come from? Where do we get our ideas from? I think if you ask 20 different writers where they get their ideas from, you're going to come up with 30 different answers. That's because it's so wide and so varied. Experience has the potential for being a new story.
Well, that's great. And we look forward to attending that. We could use some inspiration.
That's true of me some days as well. So yeah. I guess my biggest piece of advice to somebody attending Hallowread is get involved. Go to these lectures that are being given or these forums. Ask questions. Come armed with questions that you might have. There's really no question that is too absurd. There's no question that should go or should be left unanswered. That's really what we're there for. It's definitely not an imposition for us to talk about these things because it's what we like to do. If you ask any author, the thing that we like talking about the most is our books.
Well, that's great. And we look forward to meeting you as well.
Oh, me